Oh, go? Okay. You're listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Wyoming. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary. Did I do a good job?
You did a great job.
It's my first intro.
Oh, so proud.
Thank you, thank you.
So how have you been this week?
You can't complain. I'm pretty sure I had like an 85-day hangover, but that's okay.
This is going to come out a little bit later, but yeah, this past weekend was the 4th of July. So.
Not that I really celebrated the 4th of July because this country kind of sucks right now, but.
Yes. I celebrated the 3-day weekend.
Well, and we were terrible at celebrating things because our friend's birthday was supposed to be that weekend.
Yeah.
And poor guy got COVID and we celebrated anyway.
We did take a shot in his honor.
We did.
Which I don't think he knows about, actually.
Well, he will now.
That's because we felt too bad to send him a Snapchat of it because we were like, oh.
Yeah.
You are home.
Well, Jacob, cheers.
All right, I guess.
State facts?
Just jump right on into it. So, Wyoming, nicknamed the Cowboy or Equality State, joined the Union.
Ha!
What?
No way in hell are they equal over there.
Well, we'll get to some of that. So they joined the Union on July 19th, 1890, and became the 44th state. Wyoming got its name from a northeastern Pennsylvania traveler. Nope. From northeastern Pennsylvania.
What'd you say?
Traveler. I thought I missed a word. I didn't. Wyoming got its name from northeastern Pennsylvania. There was a green valley there.
So it's not a traveler.
No, I thought I missed a word. I put traveler in. Now that I'm reading the sentence, I'm like, that was wrong. So there was a green valley there that had been purchased by a land company in Connecticut from the Iroquois. The name had been proposed by an Ohio congressman in 1865. When he finally saw Wyoming and realized it wasn't a green valley, he had second thoughts about the name he chose for the state. Some weird laws. So I liked this one. If a new building is built and the total cost is over $100,000, at least 1% of the funds have to go towards artwork for the building.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It is illegal to go fishing with a gun, so no shooting fish with a gun.
So that's where they draw the line.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes. This rule is probably and hopefully not enforced, but it is technically illegal for a woman who is drinking to stand within 5 feet of a bar.
What?
I don't know. See, and that's, again, one of the laws where it's like, how in the world did this become a law?
See, equal my ass.
Created in 1921 and officially amended in 1969, it was once illegal to take a picture of a rabbit between January and April without having an official permit. The law was amended to only include commercial photographers. Because that makes so much more sense.
You need to be specific.
The now haunted town of Kerwin had, at one time, been a top vacation town, but after a deadly avalanche killed many of the miners, like, not kids, but like miners, the town was abandoned. I just felt like some people needed it to be clarified.
But it's funny is because when you say things like that, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's like reasonable, but it never would have even...
It's like when I write the notes, I'm like, this could totally be misconstrued.
I forget about homophones.
Yeah, right. It is said that Amelia Earhart had actually started to build a getaway cabin here.
Maybe she finished it and that's where she's been.
Maybe. Very well
Although
could
I feel
be.
like, I think at this point she's probably dead. For sure this time.
Yeah, because how old would she be?
I mean, she disappeared in what, the 30s?
I don't
1930s? And she was an adult then.
Yeah.
So it's older than our grandparents.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so probably. John Osborne was elected as governor of Wyoming in 1892, and to his inauguration, he wore a very interesting pair of shoes. So John Osborne had been a physician before he became governor. One of his tasks was to work on the body of recently hanged criminal Big Nose George Parrott. Or Perot. So either George Parrott or George Perot. So John Osborne made shoes from the skin of the criminal, and those are the shoes he wore to his inauguration ball.
That's disgusting.
I know.
That's so gross.
I know. It's an interesting fact, though.
I hate men. Sorry.
Yellowstone National Park is located in Wyoming and is a pretty dangerous place. Over the years, dozens of visitors who have gone to Yellowstone had been boiled alive by accidentally falling or purposefully jumping into the hot and acidic thermal features.
Why would they jump on purpose?
Maybe they didn't know how hot it is. Maybe they just think it's like a warm spring. But it is not.
It says hot spring.
Okay, but there are still hot springs that you can, like, chill in.
That's true.
This is just, like, a boiling spring.
I'm sure there was a sign somewhere that
There
they just totally ignored.
There probably was. Though they may not seem like it, but the bison in Yellowstone hurt more people than bears do.
Leave them alone.
I know. But those aren't the only animals to worry about in Wyoming. There are also rattlesnakes, moose, and elk that can get you.
I forget, like, that moose technically are
huge. Uh-huh. And, like, super territorial and super aggressive. And people get killed by moose all the time.
They're just so cute.
I know. They are so cute. And Wyoming has one known serial killer. So, Mackenzie, what are you going to talk about?
I am going to talk about Heart Mountain Interpretive Center, or Heart Mountain Relocation Center, as it was once known. I felt it was important to talk about because I kind of liked what they're doing now with it. Obviously not what it was originally used for. So I kind of wanted to talk about it. It also shed some light on some dark times in U.S. history that I feel like need to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a little bit of history on the place. So Japanese Americans had already been facing discrimination and racism long before the attack on Pearl Harbor. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States entered World War II, and FDR signed an executive order ordering the removal of all Japanese Americans or people with Japanese ancestry. Soon after, FDR signed another executive order creating the War Relocation Authority, who would become responsible for relocating, evacuating, and the internment of Japanese Americans, and building and running of the Japanese internment camps. These orders made it mandatory for all Japanese Americans to be relocated, 120,000 Americans to 10 different inland camps. Heart Mountain Relocation Center, located in Park County, Wyoming, spanning across 46,000 acres, and it was the fourth largest camp in the country. There were also camps in California, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. 740 acres were set aside for residential buildings, which would house 10,767 evacuees. It became the third largest city in the state.
Dang.
Which, it's ironic that they say city when it's not a city because no one was there voluntarily. The camp contained both residential and administrative buildings, a 30-block grid made up of the residential section of the camp. 20 of the blocks were used for housing, and other 10 were used for gardens and cemeteries.
Cemeteries?
Cemeteries. No.
Cemeteries?
Cemeteries.
You said cemeteries, and I knew what you were talking about, but then I was like, that sounds wrong. That can't be right.
Cemeteries.
Cemeteries.
I don't even think I spelled it right. That's why I said cemeteries. It's not even a word.
Cemeteries is a weird word to spell. It's one of those things where you think it's either AR or ER and you don't know.
It's ER.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's because it's just weird. Like, it's a very weird thing that you...
A. You want to say A.
Yeah.
It's not a bossy R. So you have bossy R's like bird. You don't hear the I. You just hear the R. Oh. So you call it a bossy R because it tells the vowel what to do.
Oh.
Fun fact.
Is that the face your kids have ever given you? Just the...
No, it's usually what I give them.
Oh.
Okay, let me try that again. Now that we know it's not cemeteries. 20 of the blocks were used for housing, and the other 10 were used for gardens and cemeteries. Each block held 24 barracks and also contained a mess hall, recreation center, and 2 laundry and bathroom facilities. Apartments were assigned to families based on the size of the family. Each apartment contained a cot, 2 blankets, and a pillow for each member of the family, along with 1 light and a wood-burning stove. The internees began to make improvements to their homes. Homes, in quotes, I say.
Yeah.
They would hang bed sheets to create, quote-unquote, rooms, and began ordering supplies from catalogs to make repairs. The camp also contained a hospital, school, garment factory, cabinet shop, sawmill, and silkscreen shop that was mostly run by the internees of the camp. They would earn a salary of $12 to $19 a month for their work. Some also did agricultural work outside of the camp or helped continue construction inside the camp. So they literally built the jail that they were in.
So many jails do that. Like, I've talked about other jails before where, like, the inmates have to build the jail, and then that is where they stay.
Well, a lot of inmates are used as free labor.
Yeah, exactly.
So, slavery.
Yeah.
They just put a spin on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it not sound like it. Life for the internees was less than pleasant. 32 boys had gotten arrested for sledding outside of the camp, which caused the internees to request clarification on their citizenship status and constitutional freedoms. Most of the American-born Japanese would run the day-to-day of the camp. Some were in a higher position of authority than their Japanese-born parents, which kind of caused weird dynamics amongst family members, since that's not typically how a Japanese family would be run, with, like, the children not being head of house, but being more in charge than their elders.
Yeah.
The internees tried to make the most of their situation. They held Christmas celebrations, put on theatrical performances, sporting events, and festivals. Most people approved of these camps. There were a few people who were outraged by the conditions in which these people had to live. For the most part, the town that the camp was in had mostly peaceful interactions between the camp internees and the residents of the local town. Once the high school was built, other local high schools would enter into the camp to play sports games against the Heart Mountain Eagles.
Interesting.
I just thought it was interesting that everything that they did, like, there was times that they could go, like, into town and and buy things and whatnot, and people didn't seem to have a problem, but mostly everything was to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even this high school, like, usually high schools travel both home and away, and that wasn't what it was here. One of the biggest controversies in the camp was when FDR reinstated the draft for Japanese Americans in 1944. Some of the internees saw it as an opportunity to show their patriotism. Others, however, wanted their civil liberties and constitutional rights to be reinstated before complying with the draft.
I mean...
Seems fair.
Yeah.
There were 85 convictions and imprisonments from Heart Mountain. In December of 1945, the Fair Play Committee conviction was overturned on a technicality, and in 1946, President Truman had pardoned all of the draft resistors. Even with the draft resistance, 385 Heart Mountain residents served in the military. Some of them became part of the famous all-Japanese 442nd Regimental Combat Team. This is one of the most decorated units in the U.S. military. 11 soldiers from Heart Mountain were killed, 52 were wounded, and 2 received the Medal of Honor.
Aw.
Yeah. So that was really their only thing against being in the draft, was that, you know, they
didn't have their liberties and they didn't have their rights.
They were technically not even looked at as an American citizen, yet this country wanted
They're being asked to fight for the country that they're not
Right.
seen as citizens for. Yeah.
Wasn't even like, I don't want to go to war because I don't want to die. It's really just like, I just want my rights back.
A very normal thing for humans to want, their rights to their own body.
You would think.
And what they do.
Interesting. The ban was finally lifted in January of 1945, and by November, all internees were gone from Heart Mountain. For years, no one talked about what was done to the Japanese Americans during this time. It wasn't until 1969 when a group of activists made a pilgrimage to Minetta Relocation Center in Southern California. This annual pilgrimage created conversations not just amongst Japanese Americans, but with the public, creating awareness about the camps and the treatment of the Japanese Americans at the time. So that's kind of the history about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to touch on how it's used today and one of the foundations that's a part of this relocation center, and then I'll get on to the, you know, spooky things. The spooky stuff. All right, so how it's used today. Today, the public can visit the Heart Mountain Relocation Center. They are invited to see artifacts, oral histories, photographs, and interactive exhibits that educate visitors on what life was like in these camps. There are 4 historical buildings still standing at Heart Mountain: the hospital, boiler room with its connected smokestacks, the hospital mess hall, and the administrative building. I wanted to share about the Minetta Simpson Institute and their support of the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation. I thought their message, story, purpose was important in preserving history.
Yeah.
So Norman Minetta was a resident of Heart Mountain and joined the Heart Mountain Boy Scout troop. Alan Simpson was from the local town of Cody, Wyoming, which was roughly 13 miles from the camp. One day, the 2 Boy Scout troops were brought together, and the 2 shared a pup tent. I don't know what that is, but whatever it is. I'm assuming some sort of tent.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what that is either.
Their friendship carried on for decades to come. Both men had prominent political careers, Simpson being a Republican and Minetta a Democrat. Both put aside their political differences and maintained their friendship from childhood.
Because I feel like back then, in all honesty, it was easier to put aside your political differences because the politics agreed on, like, your core things.
Right. It wasn't about human rights.
Yes.
So, yeah, they both had pretty esteemed careers. I think Minetta might have even worked with George Bush, I think is what it said.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Together they worked on getting the 1988 Civil Liberties Act, which gave reparations to the Japanese Americans who were unjustly imprisoned in the camps. They were also big supporters of the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation, and I want to read an excerpt from the website on what the foundation is and what it is used for. So this is directly from their website. Over the past several years, fear and anger have become the dominant forces in American politics. For our elders who were unjustly imprisoned during World War II because of their race, this political climate feels all too familiar. To satisfy our mission, we realized the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation must not only educate about the past, but also help shape the kind of leaders we need for our future. The Minetta Simpson Institute will be a dedicated retreat space at the center, a home for workshops and programming specifically designed to foster empathy, courage, and cooperation in the next generation of leaders. The Institute will also expand the Foundation's capacity for digital outreach, allowing us to carry our message all over the world. We are inspired in this endeavor by the lives, accomplishments, and most of all, friendship of Senator Alan K. Simpson and Secretary Norman Y. Minetta, who met as boys at Heart Mountain and have spent decades putting aside their personal differences to work together and better the lives of all Americans.
That's sweet.
I thought so too. And you can get tours of it online as well. And then obviously you can also go there.
Like digital tours online?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. A lot of places are doing that ever since like COVID became a thing,
Yeah.
which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this one was a bit of a tricky one because when I first found it, I was like, oh, this will be really cool.
Yep.
History, important life lessons, shining light on things that are important. This is great. And then it would say things like, oh, yeah, people have reported this feeling and that feeling and saying this, that, and the other. And I'm like, great. Where are they?
Yeah, who are these people?
Who are these people that have made these claims? I would love to talk to them.
Let me see.
I looked at every blog, every article, everything, every YouTube video I could find.
It's like, where are you getting this information?
And
who
all of them,
told you
right,
this?
all of them said people have said. I'm like,
Are they guests? Are they people who took tours? Let me
honestly,
know.
it was the ghost. It had to have been at this point.
The ghost.
It's the only thing
I
that
get this
makes
eerie
sense.
feeling walking around.
Besides that, it's considered one of the most haunted places in Wyoming.
Because there must not be too many other haunted places in Wyoming.
Paranormal investigators usually read a high EMF rating at this location, which again, I'm like, okay, these paranormal people are going there.
Did they film anything?
Did they
What
film?
did we?
I found one.
Okay.
I found one. It's actually pretty good. Many visitors have reported feeling a level of stress and tension when entering the buildings. There is a friendly spirit that makes itself known during the daytime, even leading some guests around the building. At night, however, there are reports of shadow people. People have also heard phantom footsteps, odd noises, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched.
Do you know that you were the first person who I ever heard the phrase shadow people from? This was like
From a personal experience or from reading
No,
this?
no. So forever ago when we were younger, we were at your house or something, like young, and you were like, oh yeah, like sometimes I'll see shadow people. And I was like, what are shadow people? And you're like, oh, those shadows you
it's
see
like
and
in
you're
the
like
corner.
periphery.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of that before.
I still see those.
I know. And it's like a legit thing. Like,
Well, yeah.
it's like
Not that crazy.
no, yeah, no, but it's like a paranormal thing, and each different shadow person has like a different meaning behind them.
Well, they've stayed in the shadows, which is fine by me.
I want to do an episode on them one day.
You know what's interesting though, now that you bring that up, is that I hadn't seen it for like a really long time. And then I started seeing them again. And it was after I moved into this apartment.
Ew.
And at
so
first-
it is your ghost friend.
At first, Albert was a joke, but now I'm thinking he might not be a joke anymore.
Do you ever see one with a hat on?
Oh, what?
One of the shadow people.
I don't really see anything. I just see something, and when I turn to go look at what it is, it's not there.
Oh, okay.
So you can't really because it's kind of in the side vision.
Yeah.
And so when you turn, then it's like
It's not there anymore. Yeah, because it's in the side.
When it first happened, I was like, oh, maybe it's just the light, or maybe I'm dizzy or whatever. But then it kept happening at times when I'm like, well, there's no reason that I should.
Yeah.
So I think Albert maybe he's shy and like
Maybe, and he doesn't want to be seen.
coming out slowly. Maybe he's just really appreciative of the fact that I still have his sweater vest.
Maybe. And that
He's
you're
naked.
beautifying the place.
I am.
Yeah.
No mirrors though. You scared me out of that one.
I'm sorry. I mean, because when you were like, oh, I want to get a huge antique mirror, I was like, that would be beautiful. And that's like the normal side of my brain thinking. And then the paranormal side is like, oh my God, it's a portal and you're going to get a like antique one. It's going to be haunted.
I already have my closet door takes up
Oh,
an entire wall.
Yeah, it does.
And it's mirror head to toe, which is great for pictures
Oh,
and seeing
absolutely.
outfits. I love it. But after Connecticut, I was like, one of these days.
Yeah, because that's why they say you're not supposed to put like one mirror facing another because it'll open up like a dimension.
Well, they don't technically face each other. It's adjacent.
Yeah. I'm just saying for like future reference.
Okay, so what about when you go to the hairdresser and they hold up a mirror so you can see the back of your head?
Okay, that's Mackenzie. No loopholes here.
Just saying.
And that one, it's like kind of. I'm not gonna answer. I don't know the answer.
All right. So the one account that I did find that I wanted to share is from these two women who call themselves WASP, Wyoming Area Spirit Posse.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Isn't that fun?
I like that.
They seem very cool people. They seem very nice. So these women go around to different locations in Wyoming and film their experiences to see if there are any presence of spirits. The two women traveled outside of the old buildings and reported hearing some voices. So when you go to the relocation center, there are tours you can go on.
Mm-hmm.
But from what it looked like from this video is that there are some buildings that are blocked off that people can't go into. And so but you can walk around there. It's not like blocked off from the public. So they kind of walked around these buildings. They didn't go into any.
Okay.
But I think there's like parts of the places that are tours and then parts that are obviously you can just walk around in.
Yeah.
So when they first arrived at the abandoned building, both of the women said that they heard another voice talking over them. I couldn't hear it in the video, but both of them, like the girl who was talking stopped because it sounded like someone was talking over her. And the other girl was like, oh, I thought that was you. Like, but she definitely agreed that there was a third voice and there was only two of them.
Ew.
And they took turns holding the camera. So it's not like there was a third camera person either.
Yeah, yeah.
So when they were exploring one of the barracks, they found that someone had ripped one of the wooden sidings off. So they were able to get like a camera inside the barracks and like kind of look around, which was very dingy. And part of me thought it probably wasn't much better at the time either.
Yeah.
And it was hard to hear at first. And I replayed the video 85 times to make sure I wasn't crazy. And they put up the little captioning where you can hear someone say, Daddy, take her from me. And so, of course, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I gotta go back. I gotta listen. And when I listened really closely to the video, I definitely heard a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like someone's whispering behind the camera because they're holding the camera themselves.
Yeah.
And even the other girl who was kind of standing off to the side, like, it just, you can tell the difference between someone whispering into a camera than whatever. It definitely... There was something there. I don't know what it was. I like freaked out. I was like, oh my God, you can hear the voice. You can't hear it, but you can definitely hear
There's
sort of whisper.
Yeah.
There's definitely a whisper there. It was very impressive. It was very cool.
Very impressive.
Shout out to these ladies for being the only one that I could find. Of actually going there and recording and documenting what they saw and heard because everyone else did nothing.
And you would think there would be so much more if it's like the most haunted place in Wyoming.
Like all the articles like just described again what people saw, and then I tried to watch this other video where again it was just like some people say, and I was like, who are these people? So, but yeah, so that is the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center or Heart Mountain Relocation Center.
That doesn't seem like too scary of a place.
No, it really definitely seems like a very welcoming. I liked it because I love history.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to share the history of it. But I also, the more I went into it, the more I was like, okay, well, people don't listen for a history lesson. But I was already way too deep into it. And so I was like, fuck it.
So whenever we're in Wyoming, we'll just take a little tour. It'll be fine.
Well, there are other haunted places that seemed like I almost changed my mind. I was looking at the other places. I was like, I feel like I'd find more for this one. Mm-hmm. But I felt that this story was important to share.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I liked the message that they have here.
Yeah, which is kind of rare. You don't really hear that a lot with, like, haunted places.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I thought that, kill two birds with one stone. Teach and spook people out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I am also covering something before I get into my actual case that I thought was important to discuss as well. So the reason I'm not covering this topic overall is because I wasn't able to find any cases about it, like any specific cases. I searched, couldn't find anything. So from Insider, over the past almost decade, from 2011 to 2020, 710 Indigenous people, mostly girls, were reported missing. So this just so happens to be the same state that at first Gabby Petito was expected to have disappeared from, for reference. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to bring light to this issue here because after the Gabby Petito case, a lot of things came out more. Mm-hmm. And the disappearances of these Indigenous people.
Yeah, didn't they find like a lot of people as they were looking for her?
And so like the 710 of them get far less media coverage.
Oh, sure.
So that's
a lot of people.
I know.
I mean, 10 years is a lot, but still
But in 10 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's 100 people a year almost.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to just bring some light to it. This statistic comes from a report published by the state's Missing and Murdered Indigenous People Task Force. Of those 710 missing, 85% were kids, while 57% were female. Some more important stats from the report. 50% of those missing were found within 1 week. 21 remained missing for 30 days or more. This is compared to 11% of white people who remained missing for 30 days or more. So that's a 10% difference.
When you say they were found, were they found alive?
It didn't really go into that.
Okay.
I think it does mean found alive, but again, it did not go into that,
Just
so I can't say for certain.
In general,
yeah,
dead or alive.
We were no longer missing, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So 30% of Indigenous homicide victims make the news compared to 51% of white victims. Indigenous people make up 3% of the state's population, but from 2000 to 2020, 21% of murder victims in Wyoming were Indigenous people. So that's a hugely disproportionate number.
Absolutely.
And obviously very awful. And so just to note, these issues aren't unique to Wyoming, like just Wyoming. It's a nationwide problem, but it just so happens that more light came to Wyoming specifically after the Gabby Petito case.
Right.
So that's when more of this kind of came out.
Yeah.
So I just feel like you and I have a platform. Sure. And we want something good to come from it, and we want to use it in a helpful way.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to bring light to the important issues that aren't usually covered or talked about or heard about.
Yeah.
Because, I looked online for more information, and there were like 3 articles, and that was about
really
it.
Unfortunate.
And they all pretty much said the exact same information. And then I was like, okay, let me cover a case. Could not find a thing.
Yeah.
Like, nothing.
I mean, it's like, people who go into service, whether that's law enforcement, doctors, even teachers, you're doing it because you care about other people. If you're not going into those professions with having some semblance of compassion for people, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because especially for police officers, teachers, we don't get paid shit.
Oh, I know.
There are much other low stress jobs that you could do and get paid twice as much.
Yeah.
So you got to be going into this because you have some sort of love of caring for people in whatever capacity that may be. And to ignore situations because someone is not white or someone is not rich or someone is whatever.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this job?
Yeah.
That's
so
just me on my soapbox.
So I felt it was something that was important to talk about. Just because when I searched Wyoming disappearances, that was the first thing that came up, was the Insider article. But today, because I couldn't find anything about the Indigenous people, I wanted to talk about the state's oldest cold case.
Ooh.
Who was on the disappearance train, as you could tell. So this case did get a lot of media attention, and I don't want to take away from what I talked about earlier, which is why I wanted to do an older case and one that we're a bit further removed from.
Okay.
So Olga Schultz was born on March 11th, 1913 to parents Robert Adolph Schultz and Tilly Wagner Schultz.
Pause. Because I feel like it just reiterates what you were saying of the fact that you could find a case from the early 1900s, so much so that you could do a whole podcast episode on it.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
So it just reiterates exactly what you said.
And again, I don't want to bring race or anything into it, but that's kind of the whole issue.
But it is.
She was a white woman with white parents.
Yep.
Living in a white town.
Especially then, too. Like, no one's going to care about Indigenous people. Ugh, that's so unfortunate.
Yes.
Sorry. Anyway.
So she was born in Natrona County in Wyoming. She was the youngest of 5 siblings. There isn't much known about her early life or much about her family, but it is known that from a young age, Olga was an outdoors person. She loved hiking, hunting, fishing, really anything that allowed her to be outdoors and out in nature. She is known actually to be a descendant of Richard Beaver Dick Lee.
Stop.
And Beaver Dick is in quotes, so I guess that was his nickname.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple of thoughts.
But Richard is the nickname Dick.
Which
never made sense. No.
Someone named Richard was a dick, and that's how that happened.
Probably.
Number 2. What does one have to do to get the name Beaver Dick?
Yeah, I don't...
Is it describing the dick? Or is it describing the person? Maybe he had buck teeth. Did the dick have teeth?
God, I would hope not.
Did it have like a thick end, like a tail?
Oh my god. Gross. So we're going to go to the next thing. So what he was famous for was being known as one of the last mountain men in the West. So
what does that mean?
Like a mountain man. Like one of the last ones.
Love me a mountain man.
I know you do. But so Beaver Dick was one of the last ones.
Hmm.
And apparently Olga was beautiful. She was often described as being a raven-haired beauty, though another source, well, actually a couple other sources said she had red hair. So very different, but all the photos available...
Isn't raven black?
Yes, exactly. So there were some that said she was a raven-haired beauty, but others said she had red hair. So there was very contradicting information about her hair color. So, but all of the photos available of her are in black and white, but at least from those looks, it looks like she has dark hair.
Okay, because I was going to say, even in black and white, if she has black hair, it's going to look very different.
From red hair.
From red hair.
Yeah, so it looked black, so
Okay.
I'm going to go with those ones.
All right.
So at the age of 21, she met an oil man named Carl Major. So his name is spelled Mauger, like it would be, you would think would be Mauger, but it's pronounced Major. So before anyone says anything, it's pronounced Major. They met at a dance in Midwest
You
Wyoming.
could tell me anything, and I would say, okay.
Well, there are some people who might not be so happy about it.
Fun fact, I can't spell, if you couldn't tell. Like, at all.
At all.
Self-diagnosed dyslexic, now that I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And, like, could see the signs. I'm like, oh my god, I do that.
Oh.
So whenever someone spells something out loud, can't even picture it, I can't.
Well, other people will be able to picture it, so... So at the time of the dance, Carl was 28. So Olga was 21, he was 28. Olga had shown up alone to the dance, but not Carl. Carl had actually arrived with a woman named Ella.
Is this Beaver Dick?
No.
Oh.
No, that was just a fun fact about who she was related to show you that she really liked being outside.
Damn.
So,
oh! If she likes being outside... Okay, that makes sense now. Is the beavers, like, they build things, chop down trees.
Oh,
if he's a
that could be it,
mountain man,
too.
And his name is Richard. Not as fun as my theory, but
I liked your theory more. Your
Thank
theory
you.
was a little bit more disturbing.
it's outside the box.
Outside the box. There you go. So Carl had arrived with a woman named Ella Thack. Well, it was his girlfriend of 6 years.
Oh, just kidding.
So these two had a sort of a rocky relationship, though. Ella was eager to marry Carl, but he kept putting it off, never settling on a wedding date. He kept telling Ella that he wanted to wait until he had steady employment and was financially stable.
He was sleeping around.
Well, none of that seemed to matter, because the moment he saw Olga, he was in love. And it was like that whole love at first sight thing. He asked her to dance, and the two spent the whole night together, dancing and holding each other close.
He asked her when he brought his girlfriend?
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
So they're all close, and all of this dancing is happening in front of Carl's current girlfriend, Ella. And Ella was furious.
As she should be.
Right. She
I
stormed...
take back what I said.
Yeah, she stormed out of the dance, leaving Carl there. But that obviously didn't matter to him because he had Olga. The two left the dance together, and in 1934, just a few weeks later, the two got married in Harrison, Sioux County, Nebraska. After their wedding, the two began planning their honeymoon. Where did they want to go? Maybe somewhere that neither of them had been before. Maybe somewhere they could explore together. A new adventure for the two? Nope. The pair decided to stay right there in Wyoming and spend their honeymoon going elk hunting in Togatee Pass in the Absaroka Mountains, located near Dubois, which is like literally how it's spelled. You would think it was like Dubois, but it's Dubois, Wyoming. And this is a place where Elga knew really well. So remember, she liked hunting, fishing, hiking, all that stuff. So Elga knew this ravine-filled place well. Ever since she was a kid, she had been coming here to hunt and trap, so she was familiar with the area and with the hunting they had planned to do. Before they started on their trip, Olga actually invited her sister, Edith Thompson, along, like on their honeymoon. Edith was surprised when, helping her sister pack for her honeymoon, she was invited along on the couple's trip. When asked, Edith said to her sister, "Why, Ollie, 3 persons never go on a honeymoon." She said that Olga's face dropped and she looked incredibly sad. Quote, "Not at all like that of a bride." But shortly after, the two newlyweds set out on their honeymoon. The two set up their campground, got their tent ready, and spent about a week just roughing it out in the wild with not another soul around for at least 40 miles.
I mean, it's 1913 Wyoming. That sounds like it's just every day.
Yeah. Yeah. On the 6th day of their trip, September 17th, 1934, the two planned to hike towards the Great Divide and see if they were able to find any elk trails there. The Great Divide was a place that Olga had experienced hiking in. She enjoyed this area of the mountains. As they set out for the day, Olga was dressed in tan pants, high-laced boots, and had a belt.
She was wearing pants? Scandalous.
Ah, no. In her belt, she had a small hatchet, and she was also carrying a bag of sandwiches, so she was prepared. The two started their hike up the mountain and were planning on heading to an elk and game trail to continue with their hunting trip. But as they were climbing up the mountain to get to this trail, Olga grew tired, and she told Carl that she needed to rest. Well, this struck Carl as odd. Olga was a strong hiker and rarely, if ever, took breaks while hiking. So the fact that she actually said she was tired and needed a break was surprising. There was a ridge up ahead, and beyond that ridge was where they believed the elk and game trail was, so Carl said he would go up ahead while Olga rested and see if he was able to spot any elk, see if that was where they should go. Only 20 minutes later, Carl returned, only to find Olga gone. He searched all over for her, calling her name, and received no answers. He looked around alone for some time before he headed back to camp in order to get more people to help come search with him. One of the first people he found to help in the case was
there was nobody around.
I guess they walked back. I don't know.
Okay.
I know. That's one thing, too. You'll see that, like, it was like, only people for 40 miles, and then they find people, and I don't know. So one of the first people he found to help in the search was a ranger named Casey Sonny Allen. So, of course, Sonny questioned Carl right away, asking him what happened. Carl went over the story and what happened. Sonny then asked if the two had gotten into a fight before the hike, but Carl said that there had been no fights and no tension between the two of them at all. Carl also stated that Olga was not the type to get lost in the woods, especially these woods, a place where she was extremely familiar with. A big search group was formed that day that consisted of 300 people.
Damn.
Including law enforcement officers, volunteers, and bloodhounds. Even a local Native American group came out. A group who knew the land and were experts in tracking, but no trace was ever found. Different sources differ on this fact, but some say that the sandwich bags she had been carrying had been found empty, near where Carl had claimed to have left Olga. But other sources say not a single trace of her was found at all. The search party continued to comb the woods, extensively looking for absolutely any trace of Olga, maybe just a shoe print, but literally nothing was found. Shoe prints were eventually found miles and miles away from her last known location, and at first it was thought to be Olga's, but it turns out that the shoe prints didn't match the shoes that she had been wearing that day. And I guess, they didn't have great ways to take up these shoe prints or compare them, but it says it wasn't hers. So unfortunately, not long after Olga went missing, and only a few days into the search, a huge snowstorm came through, suspending it. Like, thick, heavy snow. And remember, this was back in September, so still technically the end of summer, just dipping into fall. So an early snowstorm in September, which is kind of wild.
Well, but it's Wyoming. Isn't it cold over there?
Yeah, but still. It made it sound like that was an odd thing that it came in September.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, couldn't have come at a more inconvenient time. So once the snow cleared, the search still continued in full, with all the volunteers from before, but still no traces were found at all. And the snow obviously probably hindered any traces that would have been left or any, evidence that could have been there. But with nothing being found, the search group dwindled over time. Unable to find anything, authorities started to turn their suspicions to the last person to see Olga, Carl. He was held for about 2 months on the suspicion that he was somehow responsible. For those 2 months, Carl was interrogated numerous times, but each time his story remained the same. Eventually, authorities believed that he was telling the truth, so he was released into the custody of his brother-in-law, Olga's brother, Fred Schultz, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That is weird.
The conclusion that Olga had disappeared on her own accord was reached. Many theories arose about what may have happened to her. Maybe she fell off a cliff, was attacked by an animal, or fell into the water and drowned. But none of these theories really made sense because there were no signs of anything like that happening. Another theory was that maybe she went to a nearby highway and hitchhiked, and then met an untimely demise. Because hitchhiking is never a good idea.
Is there hitchhiking? Was there even cars then?
I think so.
I say I love history and I don't even know when cars were a thing.
Yeah, so the Benz patent motor car, which was a 3-wheeled car, was made in 1886 by Carl Benz, like the Mercedes-Benz.
When was Ford?
1903.
You know what's interesting about American history? Which shouldn't be surprising to anybody at this point, is I thought that Ford, that was the first car.
I literally did too until I just read this right now.
You also had this realization, thought it was the first car.
Yeah.
And we didn't learn about any other ones.
Like the Model T, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but there was apparently a 3-wheeled car, which is, Anywho, so.
Long story short, yes, she could have hitchhiked.
Exactly.
In a car.
So, of course, there are also many that believe that it was the husband, because it's always the husband. He did leave his girlfriend of 6 years for someone he met that night at a dance. Some speculate that he realized the error he made and wanted to get rid of Olga in a place where no one would notice. But the main theory that many believe, especially her family, is that Olga just dipped. Her family believes that Carl is 100% innocent and that Olga left on her own. She saw an opportunity with Carl walking up ahead and she took it. Many believe that the two got married too quickly and didn't put enough thought into it. I mean, they had only known each other for a few weeks. Edith, Olga's sister, had a theory of her own. She thought back to the day before her sister's honeymoon when Olga asked her to go with them. Edith said that her sister personified the old marrying in haste thing. She believed that her sister regretted the marriage the moment the ring went on her finger.
Yeah. She
truly believes that her sister felt that the marriage was a mistake and was incredibly unhappy in it already. Edith believed that Olga would have used this opportunity of Carl going ahead to bolt. She believes that Olga made her way to the nearby highway and hitched a ride. She said that Olga had $30 with her when she left, which would be about $633 in today's money, so a good amount of money. If you're trying to get out of town, It's not a bad amount of money. It can get you like a hotel room for a couple of days until you figure yourself out.
And that's it. God forbid you gotta eat.
Yeah.
$600 now with inflation, terrible.
Okay.
$600 a few years ago, yeah, I can see what you mean.
She was also a skilled stenographer, which is like a typist, like one of the people in the courts and stuff.
The courtroom, yeah.
Yeah. So this amount of money and that skill would have made it incredibly easy to just pick up and start a new life, somewhere where no one knows your name.
What?
The cheer song. No one knows your name.
It's not no one.
I know.
Oh.
But I changed it to fit the story. Edith also said something else very interesting. So apparently shortly after the wedding, right around the honeymoon, Olga and Carl had received a letter from his ex Ella, the one he left at the dance. Apparently Ella had agreed to step out of the picture so Olga and Carl could be together, but the letter they received was talking about how devastated she was by Carl leaving her for Olga and how she was contemplating suicide. Edith said that this tore Olga up inside and that she had so much guilt over it. Apparently, it is believed that Olga had written back and claimed that she too had been feeling suicidal recently as well about what had happened. Yeah. But it is unclear who...
Common denominator here is Carl.
Yeah. But it is unclear who that letter was sent to. It either went to Ella or Edith, and those letters have never been found, so really there's no way to know for sure what had been said, but that's what, it is believed. But just overall, there was sadness. And overall, Edith just believes that Olga was overwhelmed, and what she had been feeling at the time of the wedding was not true love, but rather just infatuation. So an interesting note. So remember Ranger Sonny from earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had a diary that he wrote in a lot, and he wrote a lot about this case, which I thought was interesting. So he wrote about how Olga and Ella had actually become friends, like I guess before she went missing, but so maybe he knew them before she went missing, which is why he was so concerned and involved in the case.
Right.
Because I was like, how else would he know they became friends if she was missing, or maybe he talked to Ella? I don't know. But he wrote about how the two girls had talked things out, and Olga told Ella how she had never intended for her to get hurt like this and didn't mean for her to feel so much pain, which is kind of sweet.
It is.
So Carl would still continue to go to the woods for years after Olga went missing to look for her or for any signs of her. Olga's family would also join him on trips as well. So for years, no sign of Olga had ever been found, and for 7 years, Carl looked for her. But after 7 years, I guess Carl had gotten back out there and soon was married. He married someone he knew pretty well, someone named Ella.
Okay.
Yep. They got married and the two moved to Redding, California. And what's interesting, Carl obtained a divorce from Olga rather than having her declared legally dead. But apparently he did this for her family, who believed that because no traces of Olga had been found, that maybe she really was alive somewhere and might come back one day. So they didn't want to declare her dead. I think it's interesting that you can file for divorce without the other person being present.
It's 1913. I think you do just about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Reportedly, Carl and his new bride lived long and happy lives together before Carl died in 1978. But over the years, no clues had been found of Olga's, and no one has heard from her. No Jane Does in the area came forward. Literally, no idea where she could have been. Her sister is quoted as saying, quote, "I continue to haunt the mailbox, expecting to hear from her someday." I know. Amateur sleuths, as well as authorities, believe that if there had been an accident or had Olga been murdered, there would have been something, like blood, a piece of clothing, a lock of hair, just something. But her family believes that as well, like that they would have found something. They also believe she did leave on her own accord and escaped somewhere, but they do think that had this been the case, that maybe she would have reached out to at least one person, but still no one's heard a single thing.
Oh, that's true.
And a weird little fact, about a year before her marriage and disappearance, there was a picture of a woman with 3 other men. The woman in the picture was using the name Vlasta Fisher, and the person in that picture looked an awful lot like Olga. So maybe if she did run away somewhere, this is the new name she's using, if she really did leave on her own, but who knows? So the mystery remains, and this remains the oldest cold case in Wyoming history.
It does make it pretty cold.
The coldest cold case.
Freezing, practically.
With, snow in September. But yeah, so that's the case of Olga Schultz.
Wow. I think, an expert now,
obviously,
that especially if her and Ella became buddy-buddy, and, she didn't want to admit the error of her ways, whatever, and couldn't get a divorce. So she was like, let me take this as an opportunity to peace out.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't like her family. Maybe that's why she didn't contact them.
Maybe
it was just her and her sister, and so she was like, oh, if I leave, I'll take you with me. But then her sister said no.
Oh,
and
so maybe she was going to bring her on the honeymoon and leave with her.
Well, right, because if she was with someone, either one, she wouldn't have disappeared. Like, unless someone, knocked her out and straight up carried her so that she wouldn't leave.
In 20 minutes, too, by the way.
In 20 minutes, and cover their tracks as they're holding a woman.
Yeah.
you would see something,
Yeah.
hear something.
And, like, the reason why people think she was able to leave so easily was she knew these woods. Like, these were her woods.
Which
and
is why she could bring her sister and help her sister through.
Yeah.
But then
so
her sister said no.
So she was easily able to just kind of leave and have Carl, like, you know, not be able to find where she went because she knew the woods so well. But
maybe
there's no way
she
to know.
had anticipation of them declaring her dead so that she could get a new identity.
I don't know. And I feel like getting a new identity back then was, like, really easy.
True. No
Like,
one,
hi, I just want to change my name to whatever.
yeah, no birth certificate.
Yeah, or social security numbers or... Well, actually, when did all that stuff
I
start?
have no idea.
We're not really good at history, so I'm not really sure.
Social Security started after the Depression.
When was the Depression? Like 30s, 20s,
1929
30s?
is when the stock market crashed.
So this was 1934 when she went missing.
I thought it was 1913.
When she was born.
Oh!
1934 was when she went missing, when she was 21.
My bad. I don't know. I just know that the Social Security program started after
so maybe
the
it
Depression.
just wasn't, like, a common thing yet.
Yeah, I don't know about, like, the numbers that you assign people.
No. Don't look at me.
Well, where else am I supposed to look?
I don't know. Well, thank you for listening to Wyoming. You want to do all the socials?
Oh, yeah. So follow us at A Scary State Podcast on Instagram, A Scary State Pod on Twitter, and like our Facebook page, A Scary State Podcast. We also have a website, scarystatepodcast.squarespace.com. We also have a GoFundMe, so if you want to fund some of our things, that would be
So
great.
we can really get this going. That would be wonderful.
We have lots of ideas, and we really want to bring you new and exciting content, and just a little bit of money would help.
Yeah, just a little bit. And rate and review us on iTunes, please, on Spotify, and then any other place you listen.
Oh, also, speaking of supporting, if you go onto our website and go to the support page, it'll not only lead you to our GoFundMe, but there's also links for cases that we've covered where you can support the family. So in Indiana, you can sign the petition for Alex.
Mm-hmm.
His family also has a GoFundMe.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you listen to New Hampshire, it's the website for the Kimberly Cates Memorial Fund is on there.
Yeah. So just check out the website, check out all the cool things.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, of course.
Tell your family.
Yeah, that too.
Tell your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your neighbor.
Yeah.
Tell a stranger.
Yeah, of course. Tell just everyone.
Everybody.
I got chosen for this thing at work. It was like an employee spotlight thing that goes out to the entire building. So I was like, something I do in my free time is my podcast. So do that and be like, I listen to this awesome podcast. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for listening. So stay scary.
Stay safe.